Alright, so I am getting ready. I'm almost ready. Good morning. Good morning. I am getting there. Trying to get my desk straightened out. I thought I can't, well, I stuck my head in here earlier and I looked and I was like, it's all right. But now that I'm in here, I need to put on my glasses first off so I can see where I'm opening to. How are you today? I am hoping that all is fabulous and well, and that you had a great weekend and yeah, all of that good stuff. Yesterday, can you believe I had so I came on here, as many of you know, and I did that first thing in the morning. And then I did my 1 o'clock. Anyway, I did my 1 o'clock. And after my 1 o'clock, I had a 3 o'clock meeting, and I took that one outside under my gazebo. And then it started to rain, and then I had a 5:30, and I did my 5:30 from in here. So it seemed like and the 5:30 went until I guess about 7. And so I had meetings all day yesterday, right in front of a camera. And but that's a good thing because I didn't have to go anywhere, at least. And so I spend a lot of my days, a lot of my time here, and I'm so grateful for having this. So please don't take it that I am complaining. I am extremely grateful and blessed. And good morning to you. Yay! I am so excited. I get to pontificate. So greetings, welcome, and thank you for being here. I am so excited about getting into this next part of this. And I've got some other books that I want to reference. And so I need to probably pull those out today. But I will tell you, I have my to-do list is pretty long. So I've got some things to get out today or in the next couple of days. And so I don't know if I got to see if I can reference the books that I want to bring into play in this, and whatever, it'll all come together and it'll be perfect, right? So yesterday, so blessings to you, and I am claiming here and now that the words spoken here are filled with light, love, and wisdom of the highest. I bless you and know that in blessing you, I'm also blessing myself. And one of the things that I try to do every morning is to speak this blessing over myself, my head blessing. There was this lady, that does Ayurvedic or Ayurvedic, something like that. I think that's how it's pronounced. She does these Ayurvedic teachings, and part of one of her things she would do this thing where she would put and I think she was like, I want to say Persian, not from Paris, but somewhere in the Middle East. Anyway, she would put a drop of oil on her head every day, just drop some oil on her head every day. And then part of she did a head blessing, right? And so I don't put a drop of oil in my hair because, whatever. I used to, I started doing that, and it could get a little messy, uh, even a drop, right? So because then it changes where I drop the oil at, the texture of my hair changes. So I got this part up here that looks one way and the rest of it another way. So I stopped doing that. Anyway, but who knows, maybe I'll find a different oil. But she anointed her head with oil. That was what she did every day, and then she would bless her head. And so part of my head blessing that I do is that whoever looks upon me, whoever sees me, whoever even thinks about me, that may they be blessed in whatever. And so it doesn't carry with it, that blessing doesn't carry with it the context of how you see me or what you think about me or anything like that. It is, may you be blessed, right? And so and the reason why I started doing that is because to some extent what I found to be true is that some people have a tendency to look at me or stare at me, right? Especially when I go out. Some people are just like, it is like this greedy look that they give me. And so it used to be when you're younger, you sit up there looking like, why are you looking at me? Or why are you staring at me? But now it's like I look at people and say, ooh, get all of this blessing, right? Just get it all. I mean, you get the blessing that is for you, but it actually takes you out of the context of thinking about why people are looking at you or why people talk about you or whatever. It's like, that you've already anointed yourself, you've already blessed yourself, right? And so it's part of my prayer, and I hope that you make it part of yours, because what happens is we get to spread love and blessings throughout the course of our day. And that's sometimes why I tell people stuff like that, because not because I think that I'm so special or anything like that, but that's part of why I do what I do. It's like, because I want my life to be a blessing to somebody else. And it's not just for, when we get caught up in that it's just all about me, then what's that? What's that? What's that? So come on. So bless yourself, bless yourself. I'm blessing you. I'm blessing you. So let's get it in. Let's get it in. Let's be about this business. Woo! Woo! All right. So I'm so grateful, so thankful. So yesterday I talked a little bit about time. And like I actually turned on my ceiling fan. And so if you see stuff blowing around like that picture right there, then you'll know that that's why. Hey, Gina! Oh, yay! Good blessings to you. Hey, so Igina, I have been getting together with some of my elementary school friends. Well, we're gonna start getting together, and Leela's funeral is this week, so yeah, all of that. Anyway, so yesterday I talked about time, and I want to circle back on that for a minute, because I took off running yesterday. It felt like somebody rung the bell at a horse race, and I took off running, and I don't know that I stopped. It's like I told you story after story that came up for me, and some of them were good because I was remembering some of them for the first time in a long time. And so yes, so I don't know that I went through time as in depth as I could have. So one of the things I want to say to you is that when, especially in prayer, in the context of you doing things, I have this thing that it takes as long as it takes. Now, one of the things I do know is that I believe that people have an expectation, and we've got this instant culture where we want everything now, right? And so, I'm quick to say that now is possible. right? Now is possible. So if you have the illusion that it's going to take a long time, then you will get at the effect of that, that thinking. But for me, I have had like instant healings, right, for myself. And I've seen instant healings in others. I have also seen it take a bit of time. But I want you to know that part of this is that part of what I'm saying is it takes as long as it takes. But what you have to know is that the moment you speak your word, I'm gonna tell y'all. You remember yesterday when I was talking about, I got to the point when I said a prayer, I was moving out the way thinking that it's gonna happen instantly, right? So I know that it is possible that it is an immediacy to your blessing. But that is also to say that if it doesn't appear that it is happening, you have to stay in consistent faith that it has already been dispatched. Remember, a couple of months ago, I was talking about a massage table that I prayed about. I was like, oh, I wasn't even sure that I wanted a massage table, but I was thinking to myself, I kind of sort of wanted a massage table. And I started looking on OfferUp for a massage table. And I'm just telling this story over again for those that may not have heard this little story. But I was started looking for, and I don't have these things referenced on this thing, so it's not that easy to find. It's almost like digging through a pile, a pile of stuff, whatever. So sometimes I'll repeat myself. So I was looking for this massage table, kind of sort of wanted the massage table, and was thinking about what am I going to do with a massage table? Where am I going to put a massage table? All of this, that, and the other. And so it was in my spirit that I wanted a massage table. So I was on my way to the store, to Mark's, right? I was on my way to the store. And as I drove past, I'm looking and it's like, there is that a massage table on that line as I'm on the lawn as I'm driving past? And I'm looking like, that is a massage table. What is that massage table doing out of there? But I kept driving, right? And so I go to the store, and all while I'm in the store, I'm tripping over this massage table. It's in my head. And I'm thinking to myself about, why would somebody put a massage table on the front lawn unless they're getting rid of it? It was out there with a bike and a couple of other items. It was really bugging me. So I walk around the store thinking about this massage table, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't get this massage table home. I'm in this little car, blah, 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 blah. I got all of that stuff going on in my head. And so then I come out of that store, and then I go into another store, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I go by the massage table, I can't go into Arthur Treacher's, because if I go to Arthur Treacher's, then I might forget the massage table, blah, 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 right? And then all of a sudden something said, go now. And I'm thinking, okay, let me just go over there now. Then, since I got that go now thing. So I drive over there, I park my car, I get out, and I go into the backyard where these guys are power washing the garage. And so I'm standing there and I'm like, excuse me. And so the guy cuts off the power washer because he sees me. It's some Latino man. He cuts off the power washer, and as he starts to walk towards me, I see another guy coming from the other direction, the side. Good morning, Gretchen. I see another guy coming into the scene from another direction. And so instead of me looking at this guy over here that's coming in from the side, I say to the Latino guy, I was like, what you doing with that massage table out there? And he was like, oh, he says, we're trying to get rid of it, giving it away. He was like, you want it? And so I was like, yeah. And so the guy over here on the side, he says, that's what I was coming to ask about. And I was like, oh, right. And then he was like, well, she got here first, right? And so I'm looking at this guy, but I can see behind him that he has a truck. And so I'm saying, oh, but he's got a truck. I don't really have a way of getting that home. He was like, well, he says, what you doing with the bikes? And he was like, we're getting rid of those too. And he was like, well, I'll tell you what, I can take the bikes and she could take the massage table. How about that? And it's like, cool. And I was like, well, you know what? I said, I don't really have a way. I'm about to give up the massage table now, right? I don't really have a way of getting it home. And he was like, well, for a small fee, I could take it home for you. And I was like, cool, right? Cool. So that was how I got the massage table. But what I'm saying is from the time I thought about the massage table to the time I drove past the massage table, I drove past the massage table without a plan for getting it home. And so then by the time the everything came together in that perfect moment, it took a few minutes, right? I don't know if it was an hour or whatever, but sometimes what happens is, and I want to say it like this: when you speak your word in faith, praying, knowing that it's done, there is almost as if the gear starts shifting and turning in the moment you say it. And the time at which it shows up or it comes into fruition may take a hour, it may take a week, and sometimes it may take a couple of years. It just depends on what it is and what needs to happen in the background, because we have to also be prepared for what it is that we desire. And so you have to stay in faith. So time, it takes as long as it takes, but there are no parameters on it. It could happen just like that in an instant, or it might take you a minute. Don't ever get into doubt. Don't start getting into the place, well, like, oh, this ain't gonna happen, or blah, blah, blah. Don't do that to yourself, right? Because what you do then is you set something different in motion. Because every word you speak, every thought you think is a prayer. You don't have to put your hands together for it to constitute a prayer. You don't have to be on your knees for it to constitute a prayer. Speaking your word is a prayer. So when God said, let there be, that was a spoken thing, right? Couldn't that simply be, girl, stop it, quit, whatever. All right. So I know the power of my words, even if you don't know the power of your words. So it's not a coincidence. And it happens for me all the time, not coincidence, right? A coincidence is a blessing, however you want to say it. But so what you have to do is begin to speak your word. And as you speak your word, you cause things to happen, right? And so if you start with, I ain't blessed, or this is just a coincidence or something like that, you will stand at the effect of that, right? So I will let you know that I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed, right? And because you're looking at me, you are blessed too, right? And so we're going to stay in that vein, in that consciousness. You can think whatever you want to, but this here is the truth. And so it's interesting because one of the things that I talked about yesterday in the sermon, the talk that I did, was the like for when Jesus was telling his mother, when she was telling him, oh, at the wedding, that, oh, they've ran out of wine. And Jesus was like, what does that got to do with me, woman? Right. And he was like, my time is not yet. And she was like, she turns to the servants and says, whatever he says, do it. Right. Because in her, even if his faith was not yet in his readiness, in herself, I'm now claiming that you are ready. I'm not even in your doubt, right? I'm not even in your doubt. I'm claiming you are ready. I'm saying it. So I'm going to turn to them and I'm going to say, whatever he says, do it, because his time is now and I've claimed it. And so your time is now and I'm claiming it for you. Amen. Leave it there. I have spoken. Okay. I love it. I love it. I love it. I got me a sweating glass of water here. Let me take me a sip. They are tearing down a house on my street, if you hear that in the background. Now, I feel some kind of way about that. I feel some kind of way about that. One of the things that I think that we do our community a disservice when we don't when we give people summary ideas about stuff without really looking at it, right? So we have, and I stay in the southeast side of Cleveland, Ward 2, and we have a lot of tear downs that go on in our community because people blame blight on empty houses rather than on governmental policies or policies of how we do things. So you get these houses and they get underwater, so to speak, and then they become there's too much stuff around them for people to go in and rehab them and get them back up to code and livable. There's so much stuff around it. And so you have this hysteria in the community, like, oh, that empty house is a problem. Oh, that empty house is making our neighborhood look bad. Oh, it's unsafe. Somebody might get hurt in there, blah, blah, blah. So they call for these houses to be torn down. But one of the things that I tell people all the time is that when I go into other communities, especially on the near west side or something, Ohio City, different places like that, you don't go driving down the street and see half of blocks now torn down. It is people reinvest in the community. They reinvest in the housing, and this housing stock over here is not nearly as old as that is over there looking all pristine and stuff. So it's kind of crazy to me. It really is hurtful to me when I hear houses torn down, but I am in the minority when it comes down to looking at what the strategic plan for this area is. If we follow the money, I think we might be surprised at who stands to benefit from what they're doing to this neighborhood, this community. Anyway, that's my little social commentary for the moment. But I'm just telling y'all, if y'all hear that, it's on the next block, but it can be pretty loud at times. Anyway, all right. So it takes as long as it takes. It can happen in an instant. It can take, a while, whichever the case may be. I wanted to say that about time. Time is, you are not, let me say it this way. You are a spiritual being. The spirit of you is the truth, not your body. I can talk about this thing of the body, mind, soul, spirit, illusion, right? And a lot of times what we do is we give primacy to our bodies and think that that is what we are. But that is what your vehicle for getting around, your vehicle for communicating on this level. You are here to remember that your truth about yourself, that you are a spiritual being, that your life is already eternal. It is not something that is just because you die, you dissipate. And that's the wonderful thing about this, that we are in this spot in God's school, as I love to call it. And I got that from Gene Houston. Gene Houston calls this God's school, that we are here remembering, learning and remembering who and what we are. And I love that idea, that notion. So so sometimes I tell people, put your big girl panties on, right? And just keep moving forward. So today we are in this section called Esteem and Intuition. For those of you who may be for the first time seeing this, we are operating out of this book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. And I am still meandering. We are just in the third chakra. So yeah, you've missed a lot if you're just now coming in at this time. I started this series along with Stephanie back the day after Easter. So if you are looking to go back and start from the beginning, it's still all in my timeline, and it started the day after Easter, whatever that was. So, and I, and if I do say so myself, this is a pretty good, tryst. And I will, we'll see what happens after this as far as what book I'll be diving into next. But we still got a ways to go, because we haven't even made it to page 200 because I talked so much, right? So self-esteem and intuition. This is some of the stuff that she says in here is pretty for a person who hasn't thought about intuition. Most of the time we think of it as mother wit, right? That knowing that we come to. And so she talks a lot in here. And so I'm going to read a little bit more out of these first couple of paragraphs, because I think it bears noting what intuition is and how it feels on each of us. And so as we talk about that, I want you to think about your intuition too, right? So so this is how it began. She says, when I began to teach workshops on intuitive guidance, I gave participants internal exercises and meditation practices. But most people who meditated reported a lack of success in developing their intuition, which for me, that is like, are you sure, right? But this is what she says. I realized during one of the workshops that getting in touch with intuition was not really the challenge. For the most part, the participants were already in touch with their intuition, but they completely misunderstood the nature of their intuition. So when we talk about intuition, as she talks about it, I'm going to reinterpret this for you, because when she talks about it, it seems as though she talks about her intuitive, how she receives information for other people. So when I'm thinking about intuition, I don't know that it's necessarily, okay, no, let me put it like this. I don't know the target of the intuitive hits I get. So if I am talking, or if I'm in motion like I am now, or whatever the case may be, something will pop, and it'll pop into my awareness out of seemingly nowhere. And it will be unrelated to, or it could be related to, exactly what I'm talking about. And then as I share that information, if it's for you, it'll be something that you can apply, or something that you understand, or it'll trigger a thought in your mind, right? Or sometimes it is like the time when I talk about, I get the feeling comes over me, go down a particular street, and I can see the name of the street sometimes in my head. I can see particulars about it, like this is where you're supposed to go. I used to see entire pages of books, right? And because look, I'm gonna show you this book, right? And I don't know if you can see how I highlight, but what I do is each time I'm reading this book, if I know that I've already highlighted in orange, I'm gonna pick up a green highlighter. And then if I know I've got green and orange here, then I'm gonna pick up pink. And so sometimes when I am supposed to read a particular thing, I can see how it's highlighted in my mind's eye. I can see that I'm supposed to pick up certain things out of that. So I can go to that book, and I flip through, and I can go to that page and think, okay, what's in it for me, right? I don't know. It comes up, and I see it clear as you would see something that's sitting right in front of you. And so I know that it's telling me, go look at that page, because there's a message on it for you. Something like that. So let me read on. Every single participant in the workshop had confused intuition with prophetic ability. Right, with prophetic ability. So sometimes what we think is that our intuition is supposed to show us something into the future. Ooh, right? Oh, I'm gonna meet the guy of my dreams today, or I'm going to have this experience today, right? It's not that. Sometimes it is, go in a different direction and you don't know why. You don't know why. You just know that you're supposed to, you get a feeling, you get an inkling. One of the things that I always say is that something is another name for God, or you could call it intuition. Something told me to go down that street. Something said. That's how we talk about it. That is intuition, right? It's not woo-woo. It is what you experience all the time, especially if you are a meditator, especially if you are doing this type of work, especially if you are just getting in touch with yourself, listening, able to listen deeply, inwardly. So they thought that intuition was the ability to foretell the future, but intuition is neither the ability to engage prophecy nor a means of avoiding financial loss or painful relationships. Yeah. Some of and here's a funny thing. I took a class from a woman years ago. Can't think of her name right off the top of my head, but I took a class in intuitive, or what was it? It was an intuition class, but I forget what it was called. But anyway, she was teaching us not only how to about our intuition, and I had already read some books on intuition, but she was teaching us about how to be intuitive. She was also teaching us how to read angels, the idea of past life regression, which it wasn't something that I really got into, but she was teaching us some stuff like that. And there was like a group of people there. It was about 15 people, 16 people in the class. So it was a good amount of people there. And even after the class was over, we continued on until I realized that wasn't my calling. It wasn't, and I think it was just because people were, you can really, when you start looking for answers outside of yourself, it is disempowering, right? When you start looking to somebody else for your guidance, that is taking your feet from under you. And so what I realized is that I wasn't doing anybody any favors by telling them or trying to access information that they should have access to. And so it depleted my spirit. So I know that it was depleting theirs. So it wasn't my calling or something that I was supposed to do. So one of the things that she said too is that even though she could read other people and get things for other people, she was really gifted in that particular area. She said it never worked on her own stuff. And so like when we talked about it, she got married sometime after that class. And when we were talking to her, we were like, so how did you know that this was the one? And she was like, I didn't, and I don't. She was like, that's not something that is within the wheelhouse of what I'm able or capable of doing. And so sometimes it's really disconcerting for people to recognize that having an intuition is not like somebody who can read the future. It's not a fortune teller. It is, I'm receiving signs and impressions, and these impressions tell me a particular direction. So if you were to ask me a question about a stock, I might see what it is that I feel about each name that you bring up. And sometimes what happens in the midst of that is sometimes I get the smell of honeysuckle, which means that it's a sweet thing. Or sometimes I get this churning in my stomach, where my stomach turns over. And if I pay attention to those types of clues, I can get a better grip on what something is being said. So our whole body becomes a compass for what it is that we are trying to get. But let me read her stuff here, right? So she says, it is actually the ability to use energy data to make decisions in the immediate moment. Just what I just said. Energy data are the emotional, psychological, and spiritual components of a given situation. They are the here and now ingredients of life, not non-physical information from some future place. So it is not all of that stuff futuristically oriented or something like that. It is the now moment data. And sometimes I remember I needed to have a conversation with a guy, and I was trying to tell him my impressions um, of 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 what I thought he needed to do. And so as I sat down to talk to him, all of a sudden my mouth got really dry and pasty, to the point where I felt like I had cotton mouth. And then I started feeling really lethargic and tired. And then I thought to myself, okay, I'm in the wrong place. Like, this is not my place. And so there was a part of me that could have tried to power through that because I thought that it needed to be done. But then there was also another part of me that was like, let me respect the intuitive hits, what I'm being told through my body, through spirit, and how spirit connects with me. Let me respect that and back up. So sometimes I will say, and it just depends on you. It just depends on your experiences and how spirit connects with and communicates with you. But spirit is always present, always present. And sometimes it'll be like a little whispering in the ear. Sometimes it'll be like an idea planted in your mind. Sometimes you'll smell something, sometimes your stomach will turn, sometimes your skin will itch, sometimes, and it's really bringing meaning to those things, trying to figure out what this is that you're feeling, and then respecting the guidance as you go. So it's a lot of, I guess for some people, it might be in uncertainty until they get accustomed to what it is that is going on with them. That's how it works. And so she says, for the most part, the information that is accessible to intuition makes its presence known by making us feel uncomfortable, depressed, and anxious, or at the other extreme, drifty, detached, or as if you were suddenly cut off from your own feelings, right? And so what it does for me is it takes me deeper into my feelings, right? Or it might not make me feel depressed. It may make me feel happy. It could be any number of things, but these are, like she's saying, these are some of the impressions or ways in which it engages her, right? So in dreams of an intuitive nature, we receive symbols of change or chaos or something else, right? So depending upon how you dream or what you dream, it's also like thinking about, okay, if it takes you back to an old memory, what was happening in your life at the time of the memory. And so sometimes it'll cue you into something that you can remember, like if I remember one of my girlfriends, I can look at around that situation, what was going on at the time, where they were living, or what was happening, or the emotionality of it. But I'm looking at it because the clue may not be the thing itself, but maybe something surrounding it. I had a dream one time about being someplace with no shoes on. our feet are our understanding, right? It's the place of understanding in our body. So what does it mean to walk into a place or to be exposed out someplace and you don't have on any shoes? You're the only one that don't have on any shoes, right? What does that mean? So it means really just starting to pay attention to the impressions and the images that you receive, and then bringing meaning to those, because it's not always going to be, don't go into that room or don't drive down that street. It's not always going to appear like that. Sometimes it does. Sometimes, it will, you might hear, I have heard a disembodied voice talk to me before. I have had interesting stuff happen, get immediate impressions that I need to go in a different direction or something like that. All of that stuff, right? Even what to wear. Sometimes it is like, I, get impressions about that. It does not mean that stuff won't happen to you, right? So just like my car, right? I had that mishap last week with my car. I was like sitting up there after the fact, like, did I miss something? Like, did y'all tell me that this was about to happen? And I couldn't think of not one warning sign that I got that this was about to happen. Not one. So but I immediately got the impression that, this is going to work out better than you could ever imagine. So just chill, right? Better than I could ever imagine. So just chill. That was an immediate impression that I got after it happened. So don't get all twisted, get your panties all in a bunch. Just chill. This will be all right. And so what I know is that sometimes from the impression that this will be all right to it actually being all right, sometimes it may take time, right? It may take a week, it may take 6 months. I don't know, but it's going to be for the highest and best good for me. And so all I need to do is stay in that space, in that energy. And every time something happens that brings up some kind of negativity around that, it's like, right? No. Because I'm not entertaining that. I already know that this works and how it works. It is not coincidental. It is because I am so blessed, so blessed, so blessed, just like you are. So blessed, so blessed, so blessed, so blessed, right? So, and so then she says, we talked about dreams, and she says some dreams occur more intensely during emotional crisis, right? And some people will tell me I don't dream, or they wake up and they don't remember their dreams, or sometimes the dream comes, but then it fades quickly from my remembrance. Energy or intuitive sensations signal that we have reached a crossroads in our lives and that we have the opportunity to influence the next stage of our lives, at the least to some degree through the choices that we make now. So sometimes when you are at a crossroads or an apex or a fork in the road, and depending upon what you choose, that will impact your experience. But here's the thing: one of the things that I get about this is I tell people often that you really, sometimes it seems like we're choosing between one thing or another, right? So sometimes we get the impression that we are choosing between God or the devil, but there is only God, right? Here, and let me take you through that, right? Because I know, what? I know, right? No, listen. You have learned, and the God, we've learned the omni stuff about God, right? Omnipresent, omnipotent, omnipotent. We know all the omnis. And for some reason I'm feeling some congestion, and I'm like, what is that about? Anyway. Anyway, So we know that all powerfulness of God, always present, always active, all powerful, all knowing. We know all the alls, right? We have been taught that, drilled into us ever since, right? Now, here's what's always funny is that then people will then say something about a devil. And so you ask, well, how much power does this thing called the devil have for you? And so it's so amazing because, you know, the moment you start talking about the devil, it's as if you now take power. If you believed God had all power, you now take the power from God and then give it over here to this thing that you believe in, evil, devil, all of that stuff. You are taking power from the all powerful and giving it to something that has no power. But if you give it power, then it has power, huh? And so for me, it has no power. I have taken all the power that I thought that it had and put it back rightly where it belongs, right? So if you want to get caught up in believing that there is some alternate power out there, you can all day long, right? But the moment I make that shift in my consciousness, that ceases to be. It has returned to the nothingness from which it came. It has no power for me. So if you got something in your life that is an alternate, diverse power, so be it, right? As long as you choose to believe that. So now, when it comes down to this fork in the road, you may be thinking that you are choosing between one or the other. But here's what I'd say to people. If you go down the one path, it may seem like it's going straight and it gets you exactly where you're going. If you go down the other path, that path is going to be a little windy, a little rocky, a little circuitous, all of that stuff, right? But you are actually going to get exactly where you're going. One is just going to be a longer road, the other one short. As a matter of fact, though, that doesn't make the short one without its own challenges. Each has its own challenges. Even a non-decision has its own challenges. So it becomes this thing of you know, because for me, it is, I know that there is only one power and one presence in this universe. God, the good, omnipotent, right? One power. And so it is in that one power that I live, move, and have my being. And so that the stuff that comes up, like I told y'all right out of the Course in Miracles, all the stuff that comes up, everything that happens to me, I don't care what it looks like, even when it seems like it is bad, even though when it seems like it's heart-wrenching or difficult, I know that it was prepared lovingly just for me. One of the things that Marianne Williamson would say is that she says is that God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, spirit, has a highly individualized curriculum made just for you. And so when something comes up, I don't care whether it has the name cancer on it or career on it or divorce on it or wayward child on it, when something comes up, that is part of your coursework. If it is before you, it is for you. And so what has to happen is that you stay in faith as you deal with that. And the way in which you deal with that grows you. It is not there to take you down or to take you out. It cannot, unless, of course, you then relinquish control in the process of it. Unless you take a detour into the deep dark and you go down there, guess what? You are still in this thing called God. It's just that you have decided to take a deep dive and your way back up is going to be another rocky climb. But there is no place else for you to go because there is one power, one presence God, the good, omnipotent, operating and at work in your life. And so when you get that and you decide that you're going to choose the high road every time, like, ooh, let me see, because I figure out that, wherever I go on this path, all I got to do is, and I feel like one of the things that I do when I stay in gratitude and in love, I get grace. I get grace. It is just so amazing grace, right? And it just, sorry, it makes my path just, I get to dance down it. As a matter of fact, if I get to choose how I respond to things, yeah, I can either go down there and I could be dragging my feet, have my head down, be sad about it, whatever, or I could dance through it. I could be like, ooh, because you know what Dalai Lama said in that book I read, it says happiness is a choice you make. I choose happy. And I choose happy anytime. I don't care what's going on. I'm going to choose happy. I'm going to be happy through it because it feels better. It feels right. Anyway, let me get back to this. Oh my gosh, I'm just meandering my way along. And so, yeah, I got some intuition stories I could tell you, but listen, let me go on. The intuition and the independence of the third chakra together give us the capacity to take risk, to follow through on gut hunches. Are you a risk taker, right? Are you always playing it safe or thinking that that what could go wrong, or like I have done at times? You know how when you play in chess, you put your hand or your fingers on the chess piece. You even make a move, but then you don't want to take your hand off because that means that now you are committing to that chess play. And so part of us is that we don't want to take our hand off because we are afraid of the risk that could come. But if you realized, or if you understood sometimes that it is the risk that is the payoff, right? Sometimes it means just taking a crap shot and seeing what happens. And you know what? And if you're always in God, what could go wrong, right? It is just like, oh, oops, okay. So man, I made a wrong turn. That just means it takes me a little longer, or it just means that it's kind of like that Amazing Race too. If you take the detour may take you you may get a fast forward, or you may get something ugly that you got to do in the process, but you still gonna get to the same location, right? You still gonna get to the end. It's just, I just made a detour into dirt, right? Into something that may have been unpleasant, but that too grows you. And so, okay, let me, because I could sit here and tell y'all about the time I did this, or the time I did that, or or somebody else did something. You are always in your divine right place. So so take some risk, right? And sometimes people have to ask the question, well, what's the worst that could happen in this situation? What's the worst that could happen in this situation? And sometimes the worst that can happen is going to happen anyway. Some things you are not going to avoid. I'm sorry. Some things you are not going to avoid. So, and so sometimes it is just like, okay, what is that was talking about the inevitable? Sometimes you meet with the inevitability of things, right? And you want to make it seem as though you could have avoided it, but wonder if it is inevitable. Sometimes you just speed up the process. So so you got to learn how to follow through on your hunches too. So I'm going to read for you this quick little story about some case study she did. Evan, a 28-year-old contacted me because he was suffering from a severely ulcerated colon. That is in the first chakra area, right? Is colon. As I evaluated him, she says, I kept receiving the impression of a horse being led to a starting gate, but never running the race. See, that's how intuition works. You'll see an image or get get something that comes to you, but you don't know why it is. When I was taking that class, there was a lady that I was supposed to do an intuitive reading on. And when I cued into her energy, one of the things that I saw was something that I didn't have the words for. I said, I see a beach, because I did. I saw a beach. And I said, but this was a dark beach. I said, it wasn't like it was any sunshine on the beach, or, I said, I don't even see any sand. So it's not someplace that you would vacation to. It just looks like a sad, dark beach with rocks on it, but it's right at the water's edge. And I asked her, I said, does that have some meaning for you? And it just so happens that it did. What I didn't know is that most of the time when I have seen beaches or visited beaches, I was visiting a beach because it was a beach and I was going to for enjoyment or for a swim. I hadn't seen like really ugly beaches that are not meant for that purpose, right? And so it was a place that she used to live. I mean, England or somewhere, but she was like, oh, like, yeah, that's a beach out of whatever. And so it did have resonance and meaning for her, but I was seeing it for her. I had no interpretation of it. She's seeing this horse here. She's seeing it at the starting gate, but it never starts running. So Evan's third chakra was open, like an open hole is what she said, and pouring out his energy. He seemed to have no energy left to stand on his own. So remember, we are in the third chakra with it, which is Nazad and Had, Nazah and Had, which represent the two spiritual feet that you stand up in the world with, right? So third chakra has to do with self-esteem. And so self-esteem is about a level of confidence and how you stand up in the world. And so he had a hole in his. And in fact, he seemed to have fled from the opportunities life had given him because he was afraid of failure. He would not take even one chance to seek confirmation of an intuition. So in his words, Evan's life had been a series of false starts. He had considered all sorts of business ventures, but had decided against them, right? You know this feeling, right? That feeling of aborting something that comes to you for your development, for you to do something with. Somebody throws you the ball, you're supposed to run with it. But instead, what you do is you don't do those things, right? This is like a metaphor for some people's lives. So he was forever studying the stock market and looking for a formula that revealed the rise and fall pattern of stock prices. Obsessed with this idea, he had carefully accumulated statistics. Actually, he had become pretty good at identifying stocks that were about to increase in value. When I asked him why he didn't just go ahead and invest in some of those stocks, he says, the formula is not yet perfect. It has to be perfect. And so sometimes we block ourselves by looking for things to be solid, to be sure bet, to be perfect, right? We do that with jobs, we do it with relationships, we do it with some of everything. And that need for it to be perfect sometimes blocks our ability to do anything, to have what it is that we desire. And so if we looked at this as a metaphor for life, right? Where have you dropped the ball? Where are you not showing up or not doing what it is that is right before you to do, right? And trust me, as I'm talking to you about this, I'm not talking to you from a standpoint of Miss Perfect, because that's why I got posted up around my house these little signs that saying, I will be a published author in 2021, because I am writing this book and I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it published, because there have been years, I could show you years ago, where I have written books and then not been able to release them and let them go, because I'm sitting up there saying, oh, this is not good enough, or this is, this, I should have been I should have had my books published a long time ago. I should have, there's a whole lot of stuff that I should have done. Instead, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you. And this too is an act of courage every single day to show up without a script, without knowing what the heck I'm going to talk about, without knowing if anybody is actually going to watch, none of that stuff. This is an act of faith. And so then it becomes about you. What's your act of faith? What are you? And in there in my kitchen, I also have this little thing that, I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt said, do one thing every day that scares you. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over every single day, and not ever stretching yourself, not ever moving out of your comfort zone, then you might be like Evan, right? Just having a series of false starts. Anyway, so he was filled with a bitterness towards himself because he knew that he would have earned a great deal of money had he just followed through, maybe even on one of these things, right? And so when she kept trying to reassure him and comment to him about how on paper it looks like he would have done a great thing had he just had the courage to apply himself. With an ulcerated colon, though, Evan's body was being ripped apart by his inability to act on his gut hunches. Now, so I will say this because sometimes what it seems like we're doing is we are choosing between ourself and another idea. We are choosing between ourself and what could be our highest good and another idea. Some people are unable and unwilling to give up what is familiar, right? Even though they know that what is familiar may be killing them. Even though you may have some inkling or some clue that this is not good for you. And at times we allow people to draw us back into things that we know are not good or that are killing us. So say, for instance, you find yourself on a job, and this job is, you get in your mind, whoo, you know what, this is really killing me, because it is going against everything in you to go into a job that is not serving your highest good, is not in your calling, not in your framework, on a deep emotional level that is killing you. But you do it anyway. And then what happens is finally you get the courage to say, you know what, I don't care. I have developed. So in his case, he developed a ulcer, or sometimes you develop pancreatitis, or sometimes you develop a cancer, or sometimes you develop something else that is really like, just causing you a lot of pain, whether it's kidney stones or some other hardening of your arteries, or accumulation of all of this stuff in your system, or you develop diabetes or something else from living in that smallness, right? Living in something that is not serving you. So you get a clue. Oh, you know what? I need to, run for my life. I need to get out of this. And so you get out of it, and then you're in this period of hang time, like I was describing for me, this period of your next blessing has not shown up yet. And so what do? Sometimes we get in that period and unemployment runs out, or we get in that period or something else. And instead of going to or forward to something new, what we do is we go back to the hell that we just came from, and we try to shrink back and get back into that old box that was no longer serving you. And doing that is just re-upping on the misery that you were into in the first place. And so we have to have the courage to do, to walk in the direction that our life is leading us, rather than going back to the safety that is killing us. because safe ain't always safe. I'm just saying. We do that with jobs. We do it with relationships. You know that relationship wasn't for you. You know it wasn't working out for you. And yet, what do? You allow yourself to be drawn back into it, whatever way, because out of comfort, out of what, some kind of seeming security, what? Oh, come on. And so this guy here, he had an inability to trust his instincts. He could not bring himself to invest even a little bit of money in the stocks. His fear of taking risks was literally destroying his body. And yet he was completely obsessed by the business that was nothing but risk taking. But yet he couldn't take the risk. So telling Evan to use relaxation techniques would have been about as helpful as telling a teenager to be at home on time. Evan needed to release his computer-like mind and shift to his gut instinct. He insisted that his gut instincts did not provide enough proof of outcomes, but only suggested possibilities. In one of Barack Obama's speeches that he made, he was talking about this idea about faith. And he said that faith is what is required in uncertainty. Like, built into the idea of faith is uncertainty. So if you are looking for certainty, certainty is not what you are going to find. Certainty does not exist. If you have certainty, it is because you are basing something on the past. The future is unknown by necessity. When you look back at what is past, certainly that looks like certainty and repetitiveness. That does not serve you. You must go forward, and forward is unknown. So my workshop participants too, this is what she's saying. Let's see. My workshop participant too were in touch with their intuition, but they assumed that intuition meant clear direction rather than intuitive guidance. They hoped that one good intuitive hit would give them the power to reorder their lives in complete harmony and happiness. But intuitive guidance does not mean following the voice to the promised land. It means having the self-esteem to recognize that the discomfort or confusion that a person feels is actually directing him to take charge of his life and make choices that will break him out of stagnation and misery. So it's interesting here because one of the things that I know about myself, and I say this often, is I tell people often that what I do know about myself is that I'm resilient. That as much as I fall and have fallen, I know that I'm able to get back up. I know that I am able to press forward. So this idea of taking risk is about learning simply how to trust yourself. That's maybe why this is called self-esteem, right? It is learning how to trust. And so as you develop your sense of trust, yeah, it may seem like, woo, you know what, this is hard, but know that you will make it through, that you will keep pressing until you win, until you've made it through. So self-esteem she says in here again, I'm going to read this again. It means having self-esteem to recognize that the discomfort or confusion that a person feels is actually directing them to take charge of your life and make the choices that will break you out of stagnation or misery. I love in Star Trek, they had this thing called inertia. And inertia was like somebody being stuck in a loop, and that loop circulating over and over again. And what does it take in order to break you out of that loop? Sometimes it's just the courage to press, right? And so in pressing, you press yourself out of the loop, but then you got to keep pushing forward, not going back to the loop. I have had dreams where, you felt the dreams where you're struggling and you need to wake up. And so there is this like, what, it's a press. It's a press. It's a hard press to wake up out of that dream. It could be a nightmare for you, right? It's a hard press to wake up out of it. And so then once we wake up out of it, it's like, whew, that's over. Now, and then what I do is I'm going to shift my position now. I'm going to lay some way different, because if I go back to that same positioning, I'm going to get that same dream again. So now this time I got to be different. And so that's what sometimes is required in life. Isn't it wonderful how we have all these metaphors for what we go through? All right, y'all, this is, I'm marking up my spot right here. We are still going to be in intuition tomorrow, intuition and self-esteem. And I love this, because sometimes it may not even be at the moment that you need this, but when these moments come up for you, it is that you have already given some thought to this. Or when you hear an intuitive hit, even today, right? Within the next hour, right? You'll know, oh, is that what it feels like? Wonder why I'm getting that. What is this saying to me? How is it feeling, right? And just being in that space, allowing yourself to have that moment, so that you can really get some guidance and know what it is that your next step will be. I have gotten these things of, these intuitive hits that tell me press forward, right? Keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing. Because sometimes we want to give up before we win, right? Before it's over. But you get these moments where it just says, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing. Sometimes our ego is so invested in the choices that we made, that we don't allow ourselves to hear that intuitive information, because our egos are involved. And our ego, it has to be right. Ego, and I don't know, are we going to deal with ego in here? I always used to use that acronym for ego, EGO, easing God out, right? It is that need to be right, and to know what, that idea that we are certain. I got a friend of mine who used to convince himself that he had done enough research, crunched all the numbers, that he knew, right? He just knew that this was going to work out in his favor. He was so clear about his research and his numbers and all of that stuff that it had to be a winner. And you want to sit there and say, dude, no, I don't think so, right? Are you sure? And then when he falls on his face, it's like, but he was so certain. But you can be certain, your ego can be certain, but your intuition is telling you something different. And sometimes you have to be in a space where you can actually figure out how to listen deeply, and how to do not what your ego says, but what you're led to do. All right. So with that, I'm going to leave it there. Tomorrow, again, we'll be back on this thing of intuition, and we'll just kind of keep going forward. I thank you. I bless you. I know that you're going to have an amazing day today. Because I can, I can see it all over you. You are going to have an amazing day. Happy Monday to you. And I will see you same time tomorrow right here. All right. See ya. Have a good one. Bye.